The shotgun blast echoed through the cornfields like God's own thunder, splintering the quiet of that endless Kansas summer night. And I knew in that split second, before the acrid smoke even cleared, that my father had just killed the only dream I'd ever dared to chase. "Get out, you filthy liar!" he roared, his voice cracking like the stock of the old Remington in his trembling hands, aimed not at me but at the ghost of the boy I'd kissed under the harvest moon. Blood pounded in my ears as I stumbled backward off the porch, the screen door slamming behind me like a final judgment, leaving me to wonder if the heart I'd hidden for 23 years could survive the truth I'd finally let loose. I was Elias Eli Harlan, born and raised in the flat, unforgiving sprawl of rural Kansas, where the wind whispers secrets through the wheat but never forgives a soul who strays from the straight and narrow. That night, under a sky bloated with stars indifferent to human folly, I brought home Jamie Ruiz, the wiry, tattooed mechanic from the garage in town who'd stolen my breath with his crooked grin and calloused hands that smelled of motor oil and possibility. We'd been stealing moments for months. Late-night drives on back roads, his fingers tracing constellations on my thigh while Merle Haggard crooned on the radio. Promises murmured in the cab of his beat-up Ford as fireflies danced like forbidden firelight. But secrets in a town like Harrow Creek don't stay buried. They fester, they erupt, and on that fateful evening, as Dad caught us tangled in the barn loft, the world I'd known shattered like cheap glass under a boot heel. The days that followed blurred into a haze of shame and fury. Mom wept in the kitchen, her rosary beads clicking like accusatory gunfire, while my younger sister, Becca, 14 and wide-eyed with confusion, slipped me a crumpled $20 bill and a note. "Run, Eli. They ain't never gonna understand." Dad didn't speak to me again. Not a word. Just stared through me at the breakfast table, his face carved from the same granite as the fields he'd tilled since boyhood. The church elders descended like vultures, Reverend Klein thundering from the pulpit about Sodom's sins, his gaze pinning me in the back pew until I couldn't bear the weight. By week's end, I was packed into my '92 Chevy with a duffel of clothes, a shoebox of faded Polaroids, and a heart raw as an open wound, headlights cutting through the dawn as I fled east toward the neon promise of Chicago. The city swallowed me whole, a concrete beast alive with horns and hustle, where no one cared about the dust on your boots or the prayers you left behind. I crashed on a buddy's couch in Wicker Park. Tommy, a lanky art school dropout who'd fled his own Bible Belt ghosts, and scraped by on odd jobs, bartending at a dive called the Rusty Nail, slinging coffee at a corner cafe, hauling crates for a warehouse that paid in cash and calluses. Nights were for drowning the ache in cheap whiskey and the arms of strangers, but none of them stuck like Jamie had. His letters came sporadic at first, scrawled on grease-stained napkins. "Miss your laugh, cowboy. Town's quieter without you." Then they stopped, and I told myself it was for the best. Better a clean break than the slow bleed of what-ifs. It was in that gritty limbo that I met Ronan. He was slouched at the end of the bar one rainy Tuesday, nursing a Jameson with the kind of quiet intensity that made the room tilt. Tall and lean, with ink-black hair falling over emerald eyes that held storms I'd only read about in Kerouac. He sketched idly on a bar napkin, abstract swirls of shadow and light that mirrored the chaos in my chest. "What's a farm boy like you doing in a joint like this?" he'd asked. His voice a low drawl laced with Brooklyn edge. And just like that, the hook was set. We talked till closing, about everything and nothing, the hypocrisy of small-town saints, the ache of loving in secret, the wild hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a place for us out there. Ronan was a photographer, freelancing for indie mags, chasing stories in the underbelly of the city, queer youth in Boys Town, drag queens owning the stage at Berlin, migrants carving lives from the loop's shadows. He saw me, really saw me, not as the prodigal son or the broken runaway, but as Eli, the guy who could quote Springsteen lyrics like scripture and dance like no one was watching in a kitchen lit by fridge light. Our first real date was a picnic on the lakeshore at Montrose Point, turkey sandwiches from a halal cart and a thermos of spiked lemonade, waves lapping at our bare feet as he captured me with his cannon. Laughing, unguarded, alive. Your poetry in motion, Harlan, he murmured, lens forgotten as he pulled me close, salt air mingling with the taste of his kiss, soft and searching, like he'd been waiting lifetimes for this. Falling for Ronan was like breathing after drowning. Effortless, essential. We shacked up in his Logan Square walk-up, a third-floor airy with creaky floors and walls papered in his prints. Black and white portraits of lovers defying the odds, hands intertwined against faded backdrops of protest signs and pride flags. Mornings were for lazy coffee and his head on my chest, listening to the thrum of my heart like it was the soundtrack to his next exhibit. He'd drag me to gallery openings in Pilsen, where I'd nurse a plastic cup of wine and marvel at how he commanded the room. Not with bluster, but with that piercing gaze that stripped souls bare. And in the quiet hours, when the city hummed below like a distant lullaby, we'd lie tangled in sheets worn thin from too many laundromats, whispering dreams. A road trip down Route 66, a house with a porch swing overlooking the prairie, a life where love wasn't a crime, but shadows lingered, even in the light we built. Ronan's ex, Derek, a silver-tongued curator with a trust fund and a grudge, circled like a shark scenting blood. I'd catch the voicemails on speaker by accident. You think that Hicks got what it takes, Ro? He reeks of hay and regret. It stung, but Ronan laughed it off, pulling me into bed with promises that tasted like forever. Still, doubt wormed in, fed by late nights when he'd vanish into edits, emerging hollow-eyed and distant. I threw myself into work, landing a gig as a line cook at a farm-to-table spot in Ukrainian village, chopping onions till my hands bled metaphorically as much as literally. Becca wrote monthly now, her letters a lifeline, school dances, Dad's worsening limp from the tractor accident, Mom's quiet unraveling. We miss you, Eli. Even if they won't say it. The first crack came subtle, a whisper in the wind. Ronan's big break. A solo show at the Museum of Contemporary Photography. Fractured frames, chronicling queer resilience across the heartland. He poured his soul into it, driving back to Kansas for shoots, returning with rolls of film that captured the raw beauty of closeted lives, the drag bar in Wichita, the farmhand stealing glances at county fairs. I tagged along once, the familiar scent of silos twisting my gut as we pulled into Harrow Creek. This is home, Ronan asked, brow furrowed at the sagging porches and faded Jesus Saves signs. I nodded, throat tight, pointing out the creek where Jamie and I had skipped stones, the field where Dad's shotgun had fired its verdict. He squeezed my hand, fierce and unspoken. We're rewriting this story. The exhibit opening was electric, critics buzzing, champagne flutes clinking under the museum's vaulted ceilings, Ronan's prints glowing like accusations and anthems. I stood in the corner, Tyascu, beaming as he thanked the crowd, his eyes finding mine across the sea of faces. To the man who taught me that love is the ultimate exposure, he said, and my chest cracked open. Later, in the green room, Derek slithered in, all tailored suits and sly smiles. Charming rusticity, Eli. But tell me, does he know about that little side hustle of yours? The one that keeps the lights on when freelance dries up. My blood iced. I'd never told Ronan about the occasional escort gigs. Desperate cash in those early months, anonymous encounters that left me hollower than before. It was survival, not sin, but in Derek's mouth, twisted into betrayal. Ronan confronted me that night, voice shattering the after-party glow. Is it true? God. Eli. How could you not say anything? I crumbled, spilling it all, the fear of not measuring up, the shame of my past chasing me like a bad debt. He paced, hands raking his hair, the man who'd captured my vulnerabilities now blind to his own. I thought we were building something real, he whispered, and in that fracture, I saw the echo of my father's rage, the town's exile. By dawn, his bags were packed, the apartment echoing with the ghost of our laughter. I need space to process this, he said, door clicking shut like another judgment. Months dragged into a numb routine, shifts blending into sleepless nights, Becca's letters piling like unanswered prayers. Then the call came, shattering the fragile piece I'd stitched from solitude. Mom's voice, frail as autumn leaves. Eli. Honey. His dad. The cancer's back, worse this time. Pancreatic. Docs give him months. And the farm. We're losing it. Becca's talking suicide again. Says she can't watch him fade. Please, son. Come home. The prodigal's return. Laced with irony sharp as barbed wire. I booked the first flight to Wichita. Heart a war drum. Wondering if forgiveness was a bridge or a noose. Harrow Creek hadn't changed. Same cracked sidewalks. Same judgmental stares from the IGA checkout line, but I had. Leaner. Harder around the edges. With a Chicago swagger that masked the boy who'd run. The farmhouse loomed like a sentinel, paint peeling under relentless sun. And as I pulled up in a rental Impala, Becca burst from the door, flinging herself into my arms with sobs that racked us both. You came, she gasped, freckles stark against tear-streaked cheeks. Inside, Mom hovered by the stove, her embrace tentative, eyes red-rimmed. Dad lay in the recliner, gaunt and gray, oxygen mask hissing like a serpent, but his gaze, when it met mine, held not fire, but flicker of something broken. The first dinner was a minefield of silences, forks scraping plates of overcooked pot roast, the air thick with unspoken indictments. Heard you made something of yourself out there, Dad rasped eventually, voice a gravel whisper. Fancy city job. Ha! I nodded, throat dry, omitting the details, the exhibit I'd ghosted, the calls to Ronan that went to voicemail, the way betrayal had hollowed me out. Becca chattered to fill the void, her braces glinting as she described high school drama, but her eyes darted to Dad, pleading for miracles I couldn't grant. Nights were for vigils by his bedside, the room heavy with the scent of antiseptic and regret. He'd wake sweating from dreams, clutching my hand like a lifeline. I was wrong. Boy, he murmured one midnight, morphine loosening his tongue. That night, I saw red, thought I was saving you from hell. But hell was what I made right here. Tears carved tracks down his weathered face. And for the first time, I saw the man behind the myth, the Korean War vet haunted by buddies lost in jungles, the farmer who'd buried dreams under debt and drought. Loved your ma fierce, but couldn't love you the same. Afraid it'd break me, I held him then, the boy who'd fled melting into the man who'd returned, whispering, it broke us both, Dad. But we're here now. Ronan's shadow loomed unbidden. I'd scroll his Instagram in stolen moments, new shoots in New York, cryptic captions about exposing truths, a recent post tagging Derek at some gala, arms slung casual, smiles sharp, jealousy twisted like a knife, but beneath it, a deeper ache, the love we'd forged in fire, tempered by my secrets. One evening, as thunder rumbled over the plains, Becca cornered me in the barn, the same loft where it all unraveled. You still talk to that guy? The one from the city. Her innocence pierced me. I confessed fragments, the romance that bloomed and withered, and she hugged me tight. Love's not a straight line, Eli. It's a tornado. Twists you up, but leaves you standing if you're lucky. The farm's fate hung like a guillotine. Auctions loomed, creditors circling, and in a desperate bid, I pitched my story to a Chicago journalist friend, anonymous at first, then bold. Prodigal Son Returns, a gay man's reckoning with family and faith in the heartland. It went viral. NPR segments, op-eds in The Atlantic, donations flooding a GoFundMe I'd set up on a whim. Harrow Creek buzzed with scandal. Reverend Klein decrying queer propaganda from his pulpit. But others softened, neighbors dropping pies at the door with notes of apology. Dad rallied enough for a porchside barbecue, his laugh frail but real as we grilled ribs, Becca strumming guitar under string lights. Then the storm broke. Derek emailed out of the blue, smug. Serpentine. Saw your little sob story. Ronan's using it for his next book. Redemption Road. Your life. Repackaged. Thought you'd want to know before it hits shelves. Attached. Galleys. My Polaroids woven into his narrative. Our private letters footnoted like exhibit labels. Betrayal's second strike. Sharper for its delay. Ronan, my Ronan, had mined our wreckage for art, exposing fractures I'd barely begun to mend. Fury propelled me to the airport, Chicago's skyline a blur of accusation as I stormed his studio. He opened the door shirtless, paint-flecked, eyes widening in shock. Eli? What the how'd you? I thrust the printouts at him, voice a whip crack. This? Our life? Diced up for your canonization? I trusted you, he paled, raking hands through hair gone longer, wilder. It's not exploitation, it's healing. Processing us. The pain. The beauty. You inspired this. We argued till voices hoarsened, truths spilling like monsoon rain. His fear of losing me to my ghosts, my silence born of shame, Derek's poison seeping in. I never stopped loving you, he admitted, voice breaking, but I didn't know how to stay without breaking. In that raw unraveling, climax crested, not in shouts, but surrender. I saw him anew, the artist who'd captured my soul, the lover who'd held me through storms. Then don't process from afar, I said, stepping close, the space between us electric. Come with me. See the end of the story you started. He searched my face, then nodded, grabbing his keys. The drive back to Kansas was a vigil of its own. Route 80 unspooling under headlights, Springsteen on loop, hands clasped over the console like vows renewed. Dad's decline accelerated, days a blur of hospice visits and heartfelt reckonings. Ronan documented quietly, not for lenses but for us, Polaroids of family clustered on the porch. Becca's hand in mine. Dad's faint smile as Ronan shared tales of city lights. You did good, son, Dad whispered on his last lucid afternoon, gripping us both. Loving fierce. That's the real harvest. He slipped away at dusk. The sky a canvas of bruised purples and golds. Mom's wail echoing through the fields. The funeral was a tapestry of contradictions. Reverend Klein's eulogy laced with caveats, but congregants slipping me condolences laced with pride. Harrow Creek shifted, grudgingly. A rainbow flag fluttering from the VFW hall, whispers of change in the diner booths. Ronan and I stayed through the harvest, hands dirty in the soil, rebuilding what we could, solar panels on the barn roof, a community co-op for queer youth fleeing similar exiles. Becca thrived, college-bound with a scholarship from the Viral Fund. Her hug at the airport fierce. Bring him back soon, Eli. This place. It needs stories like yours. We drove east at dawn, the prairie yielding to interstates, Ronan's head on my shoulder as the sun crested. Betrayal scars lingered, faint lines on a well-loved map, but they'd mapped a path to something truer. Love not as perfection, but persistence. In Chicago's embrace, we rewrote our frames. His next exhibit harvested hearts, co-curated, my words alongside his images. Life unfolded messy, human, arguments over takeout, lazy Sundays tracing tattoos, the quiet knowledge that we'd chosen each other, again and again. Years later, as snow dusted the walk-up windows, Ronan proposed under the same lakeshore oaks, a ring simple as a promise, engraved with poetry in motion. I said yes, tears freezing on my lashes, because in the end, love isn't shunned or betrayed. It's the stubborn root that cracks stone, blooming defiant in the heartland's unyielding soil. And in that bloom, we found grace, not absolution, but the profound humanity of simply, fiercely, being.